Welcome back, guys. This is Gaming with Alston, and today, on episode 87 of Pyramid City. What we're gonna do this episode is we're gonna continue on finishing up the mid-sector. Telling your child to stop eating sugar all the time is like telling someone, don't breathe, or don't sleep at night. It's completely biological. There's a biological reason for that. Even if we don't market sugary stuff to children, they're still going to eat a lot of sugar anyway. Almost all the sugar we've consumed in the Middle Ages was actually consumed by children. Most of the sugar, even in the Middle Ages, most of the sugar was actually consumed by children. Because there was no FDA back then. If it tasted sweet, that meant it was safe to eat. If it tasted sour, that meant it was rotten. If it tasted bitter, that meant it was poisonous. That's how we determined if food was safe or not for human consumption. If your aversion to bitter-tasting foods like vegetables continues on to adulthood, despite your parents telling you to eat your vegetables, you might have to blame it on your genetics. Might be your genetics to blame for that. You have to blame it on your genes. You might have to blame it on your genetics. Your genes might actually be to blame for that. Your DNA might have something to do with... because your genetics might actually have a greater control over your food preference than your willpower. Not all overweight people lack willpower. It takes more, as it takes more than just willpower to lose weight. If you give a baby vegetables while they're teething, they're probably gonna spit it out. They'd probably want something sweet. Because before, in the pre-industrial times, like Middle Ages, children ate a lot of sugar back then too. They've always been doing that. We tried stopping them, but there is no hope. It is something you just have to accept. Some people won't accept the fact that your child's sugar cravings are biological. Some people just won't accept it. You gotta accept the fact that no matter how hard you try to stop your child from eating so much sugar, they're not gonna do it. They will keep going. That is because Their bodies prefer energy-dense foods because they're growing very quickly. Your lifelong aversion to vegetables might actually be genetic. Even without the dressing, McDonald's salads don't have much nutrition whatsoever. In fact, plants have been stripped of their nutrition already. And CO2 emissions are only making the problem worse. They are only making the problem worse. The problem with consuming bitter-tasting foods is if we go back to the Stone Age. Most of us would avoid those vegetables altogether, because they don't provide much energy whatsoever. For children, their bodies naturally prefer energy-dense foods anyway. Because they are growing very quickly. The result of that growth spurt is that their blood sugar would get low very quickly. Adults can handle fasting for much longer than children. Children need more food per kilogram of body weight compared to adults. That is because they are growing. If your child's aversion to vegetables continues on to adulthood despite your pressure for your child to eat more vegetables, you might have to blame it on genetics. Because humans actually evolved to avoid bitter-tasting stuff, because back then, in the Stone Age, when we had to test our food to make sure it was safe for human consumption, that meant whenever a potential foodstuff tasted bitter, that probably meant it was poisonous. We had to stay the hell away from it. That probably explains why junk food tastes so good. The most unhealthy of foods tend to taste so good. Your desire for junk food might actually be genetic. Meaning sometimes eating junk food might not be an option at all. Because ultimately your food preference is controlled by genetics. Your DNA might actually control what you're eating. About 95% of your physique is actually controlled by what you're eating. If it was mostly controlled by exercise, that wouldn't be possible. And that is because Muscles require protein to grow. If you don't consume any protein whatsoever, your muscles are going to eat themselves away, no matter how much sugar you eat. You're going to end up going into a catabolic state if you don't consume protein. Then eventually you're going to die. It doesn't matter how much exercise you get. If you don't consume any protein in your diet, you're going to die. Protein doesn't have to come from an animal. Beans do have a lot of protein. Humans need at least 50 grams of protein per 2,000 kilocalories. Beans do have a lot of protein. The amount of glycogen your body can store is only limited by the amount of fat stores you have. Because glycogen might actually be lipophilic. Which probably explains why, for some bodybuilders, their workouts are gonna suck. Because they're extremely lean. There are certain vitamins your body actually needs that are actually fat-soluble. If your body cannot store fat, nor can you source fats in your diet, your brain cells are going to die. The problem with being extremely lean is your skin's going to look like crap. Your skin is going to look like crap. Because carbohydrates do promote water retention. And water retention is crucial for healthy skin. Which means that your body needs to store fat for healthy skin. Some amount of subcutaneous fat for healthy skin. If your body cannot store any amount of subcutaneous fat, your skin's gonna look like crap. Which is why so many people on the internet call Lizzie Velasquez ugly. Yet she cannot help it. Gotta accept the fact that she cannot help it. Her fat percentage is almost... The amount of fat deposits she has is almost completely absent. So absent, in fact, if she eats like 2,000 calories a day, she'll die. She will die. She needs to eat like 9,000 calories a day, just to stay alive. If she sticks to a 2,000 calorie diet like most of us, she'll die. She is so lean to the point that she's completely blind in one eye. That's due to vitamin A deficiency. And vitamin A deficiency can cause blindness. And yes, it's actually due to vitamin A malabsorption. Due to the fact that she's so lean. actually go longer without food compared to men. Ironically enough. That is because they have more fat reserves beneath their skin. I'm not trying to be sexist. One thing I discovered is that there's a bodybuilder whose case of Palumboism is a lot worse than Dave Palumbo. His name is Big Lenny. People should have called it Big Lennyism, or simply Lennyism. But the one who made the term so popular is a man named Dave Palumbo. When children go through growth spurt, they probably some of them might actually develop a case of Palumboism, in which they end up with pot bellies. And that Palumboism is actually the result of their organs growing faster than the rest of their body. They end up with... when children go through a growth spurt, especially toddlers, they end up with abdominal distension, aka Palumboism. And that's actually completely normal. And as I'm bulking up, it's possible I might end up developing a case of Palumboism. If I was on steroids. It's a good thing I'm not on steroids. If I was, I'd probably end up with a distended gut by now. Like, kind of like how Oswald the Lucky Rabbit's belly is distended. He's one case of Palumboism, like, in the world of cartoons. Some people call it a potbelly. A lot of people call it a potbelly. I call it Palumboism. I call it Palumboism. Because if they acted out in real life, they'd probably be pretty muscular. And some of them might end up with Palumboism. And Oswald the Lucky Rabbit's one of the most well-known cases of Palumboism in the world of cartoons. If we put Oswald the Lucky Rabbit into real life, his belly would look like with human-like anatomical physique. Kind of like that anatomy man inside the science biology textbook. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit would probably have some obvious signs of Palumboism. Or closer to Lenny, like his plum. His Plumboism would be like that big Lenny. A lot of the pot belly that some bodybuilders get, that's actually called Palumboism. A lot of strongmen have some pretty obvious signs of Palumboism because of all the testosterone their body's producing. Especially Eddie Hall. That's completely normal for strongmen. Acromegaly it's actually the official name for Palumboism. It's also known as roid belly or GH gut. Sometime in the future, I might think about doing a debate with Dave Palumbo. I make jokes. Sometimes I like to make jokes about Palumbo's belly. One of the poses in bodybuilding that you have to do as a bodybuilder is the abdominal vacuum. Naturals doing that pose will oftentimes flatten out. While steroids, their abs would still be visible. But naturals, on the other hand, including Uzoma Obalor, will flatten out. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the idols in the beefcake world. Yet, he ended up taking steroids to get that ripped. He kept taking steroids until he suffered a heart attack. Then he stopped taking steroids. With Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'd call them the steroid politician. Because he was the governor of California from 2003 to 2011. A couple old decades before that, he took steroids. Big Lenny has the worst case of Palumboism in the history of bodybuilding. In the history of bodybuilding, he's got the worst case of Palumboism. And that's probably what's going to happen if you when you start taking steroids. It'll ruin your belly, causing abdominal distension. And sometime in the future, I might think about mocking Sverich. Like, full-on mock him in a debate. Like, I'd do a permanent add-on to Skype, so I could start doing a debate with Sverich. Kind of like vegan games. Whether or not a vegan diet is good for you. My question is, how does rotten meat get you high? Sverich. Anyways, this should be it for this video. Stay tuned for episode... Thank you for... Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for more... Instagram and Twitter for more content like this. Gaming Without Austin signing off. Thank you for watching, stay tuned for more, and tschüss.